Close your eyes for a moment, just for one moment. Imagine a quiet college campus, Seattle, mid-70s. Streetlights glowing softly, footsteps fading into the night. Now imagine this: the person walking beside you, the person who approached you asking for help, is smiling, polite, harmless.
And in less than an hour, you will be gone. That's the part we never forget, the devastating simplicity of the crime. Ted Bundy didn't break into homes like a wild beast. He was granted entry by trust.
I still remember the first time I heard his name. Not from a wanted poster, but from someone saying, "He just doesn't look like a killer."
That sentence itself is terrifying. It forces us to confront our own biases about what evil should look like. We expect a villain to be visibly marginalized or obviously sinister.
Bundy understood that expectation better than anyone. He realized that a handsome face, an education, and a good suit were more effective than a disguise. He weaponized his privilege, his charm, and his seemingly flawless public image. He was the ultimate American chameleon.
His success completely disrupted the conventional profile of the American monster. Prior to Bundy, the serial killer was often perceived as an outsider. Bundy showed us they could be at the very heart of our community, attending the same classes and pursuing the same ambitious career paths.
Ted Bundy wasn't born screaming violence. He was born into deep confusion.
Raised believing his biological grandparents were his parents and his mother was his sister. A lie that was maintained for years, creating a profound foundational instability in his earliest years.
When he later discovered the truth, that everything he knew about himself was a fabrication, it shattered his sense of self, who he was, where he belonged, whether he mattered as an authentic person.
That kind of identity fracture, combined with severe, unchecked narcissism, is a volatile mix. It didn't explode outward immediately, but it quietly rotted his soul from the inside. This fed a desperate, consuming hunger for absolute control over others, to compensate for his own internalized lack of control and immense self-loathing.
This resentment gradually built, focusing eventually on the symbols of the conventional acceptance and stability he felt denied. Successful, attractive young women who embodied the future he was striving for and failing to truly attain. His rejection by his longtime girlfriend further crystallized this rage.
Here's what makes his story so uniquely uncomfortable. Ted Bundy was undeniably high-functioning.
He was educated, attractive, ambitious. He had a solid girlfriend, a seemingly promising future in law, and a veneer of respectability that insulated him from suspicion.
Crucially, he worked at a suicide prevention hotline. Think about that calculated hypocrisy. He was listening to society's most vulnerable people, offering them verbal comfort and empathy, while simultaneously planning his next predatory attack.
Saving lives by day and destroying them by night. This was not just irony, it was strategic. He was actively studying the law, studying psychology, and studying human empathy, all to find their weaknesses, to anticipate the investigative techniques that would eventually be used against him.
He was the wolf in the role of the shepherd. His ability to maintain this dual life is the strongest evidence of his psychopathy, the ability to perform warmth and genuine connection while feeling absolutely none of it. This ability to compartmentalize was central to his success as a killer.
In those early disappearances across the Northwest, what was his primary weapon? It was never brute force alone.
No gun, no knife at first, just a prop, a cast on his arm, a sling, a cane, a soft, deferential voice saying, "Can you help me carry these books to my car? My leg is broken."
He weaponized kindness and gender stereotypes. He capitalized on the innate human drive, particularly in young women, to assist someone in distress. This psychological trickery was infinitely more effective than any open physical threat.
Their natural goodness was instantly turned against them. He lured them into a position of vulnerability, and then his immense strength and prepared attack materials took over.
And the pattern of his victims was chillingly precise. Young women, typically students, with long hair parted down the middle, a constant, disturbing trophy or proxy for the woman who had wounded his immense ego by leaving him.
Bundy didn't view his victims as individuals with potential and promise. He viewed them as interchangeable symbols of rejection, designed only to provide him with a moment of ultimate, violent control to satisfy his pathological needs. This was purely about power, enacted through violence.
The killer remained a ghost for so long because he was constantly mobile. He crossed state lines, Washington, Oregon, Utah, Colorado, leaving a disparate trail of missing persons reports that no single agency could or did connect.
Law enforcement was fundamentally unequipped for a killer of this type. There were separate, non-communicating jurisdictions, fragmented reporting standards, and no shared national databases for victims or suspects.
The system was tragically fragmented. Bundy used that fragmentation like an invisibility cloak, moving just ahead of the slow, localized investigations. The only consistent information police had were isolated details: the name Ted, the beige Volkswagen Beetle, and the rapidly growing atmosphere of terror.
It was only through the eventual dedication of isolated detectives who started manually comparing notes and profiles that the pattern began to form. The early, primitive behavioral profiling efforts suggested that this was a single, highly mobile perpetrator, a concept new to many agencies at the time.
When he was finally arrested in Utah, possessing the telltale tools of his trade, the handcuffs, the mask, many believed the nightmare was over. They were profoundly mistaken.
Bundy thrived on pure arrogance. He viewed his incarceration not as punishment, but as a challenge. He treated the legal system not as a force of justice, but as a puzzle he was entitled to solve.
He escaped, once, through a courthouse window in Aspen, Colorado during a recess. It was a public humiliation for the authorities and a massive ego boost for Bundy.
He was recaptured, but his pride demanded a greater feat of genius. He escaped a second time, losing significant weight, meticulously sawing through his cell ceiling, and digging through a ceiling space in the Garfield County Jail on New Year's Eve, 1977.
He was on the run for nearly 2 months, and his escape was a direct invitation for him to resume his predatory life. It affirmed his dark philosophy: I am smarter than all of you. I am above your laws and your capture attempts. After the final escape, he surfaced in Florida, isolated, financially desperate, and exhausted. His careful methodology finally gave way to chaos. No more calculated manipulation, no quiet appeals for help, just raw, desperate violence. He arrived in Tallahassee, and the frenzy began immediately with a devastating attack on the Chi Omega sorority house.
That night exposed his true, unmasked nature, the speed, the overwhelming ferocity, the sheer brutality. It was the physical climax of his psychological decompensation.
And then, the most tragic final murder, 12-year-old Kimberly Leach. Targeting a child showed that his internal controls had utterly failed. He was running on pure, unchecked compulsion.
The trial that followed was a media circus and a calculated stage play. Ted Bundy insisted on defending himself.
This was not about legal strategy. It was about performance. He needed the camera, the courtroom spotlight, as his final, most grand platform to try and prove his supposed innocence and charisma.
The cruelty for the victims' families was immense. They sat there for weeks, listening to this charming monster dissect legal arguments about their daughters' deaths, watching him try to discredit witnesses, all while maintaining that facade of a respectable law student.
But the prosecution had a weapon he couldn't charm away: advanced forensic science. The bite mark evidence, matching his distinct teeth to the wound on victim Lisa Levy, was a crucial, irrefutable physical link. It was proof that connected the handsome face to the monstrous act.
He was convicted, death sentence. Yet he still attempted one final act of emotional manipulation: the bizarre in-court marriage proposal to Carol Ann Boone, a final, desperate effort to seize control of the narrative and project an image of normalcy.
The most important truth is that we talk about Ted Bundy too much.
And the victims far too little. They were students, sisters, friends, lives interrupted. Linda Ann Healy, Donna Gail Manson, Susan Elaine Rancourt, Roberta Kathleen Parks, Brenda Carol Ball, George Ann Hawkins, Janice Ann Ott, Denise Marie Nasland, Laura Ann Aim, Carol Duranch, Deborah Kent, Karen Campbell, Melissa Smith, Lisa Levy, Margaret Bowman, Karen Chandler, Kathy Kleiner, and Kimberly Leach.
They weren't statistics, they were futures, and we must center their memory. Bundy's story is a case study that forced law enforcement, psychology, and society itself to evolve.
That danger doesn't always look dangerous, that the most profound evil can be clothed in charm and respectability, that we must look beyond the surface.
That prevention and early intervention matter more than any final punishment, and that the advancements in forensic science, like bite marks and DNA evidence, were spurred by the necessity of catching killers like him.
We use the knowledge of the monster to protect the innocent. That is the only purpose of revisiting this darkness.
Evil didn't scream in Ted Bundy's story.
It smiled.
It asked for help.
And when we weren't careful,
It destroyed lives.
remember the victims.
Always.